Register to the University College of the Cayman Islands 4-week technical vocational courses. Our introductory courses provide training in areas such as computer technology, customer service, QuickBooks, commercial cooking, electrical installations, plumbing and air conditioning applications, and many more. Classes start July 27th. Qualified Caymanians can apply for private scholarship. How can you register? Join UCCI's registration drive on July 22nd to 24th and July 27th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. on the UCCI campus. Bring your passport and health insurance card. For more information, contact our admission team at admissions@ucci.edu.ky or call 345-623-8224.
Cayman National's online banking is still the best way for you to bank, and at Cayman National, you can access your banking when you need it. Enjoy safer, easier, and discounted banking from the comfort of your home or wherever you are. Manage your everyday banking needs, such as checking account activity, paying bills, transferring funds between accounts internally and domestically, and much more. Remember, we're stronger together through our efforts to keep the Cayman community healthy.
Live from Star 927 Studios in the center of Cayman's capital city, Georgetown. This is Straight Talk with Ruth Anna.
Good evening, everybody. You are tuned into Straight Talk, brought to you exclusively by Star 92.7 Premium Radio. I am your host, Ruth Anna Young. Always honored to be your host here on Straight Talk every Monday through Thursday from 5 to 6 p.m. right here and nowhere else other than Star 92.7. It is 5:04 on the Star 92.7 clock, and it is Monday, the 20th of July. Monday means it is Medical Monday, brought to you by our partners at Health City Cayman Islands. I will be joined, and I'm joined in studio this afternoon by two gentlemen, Dr. Raghu and Mr. Shomari Scott. We are going to be talking mostly about the preventative side of cardiovascular care and some of the services offered at Health City. And we will also talk later on about some of the intervention in the cardiovascular department as well. But a slightly, I would say, a new spin on, I don't think we've really spoken too much about this side of their cardio services before. So I'm happy to have this conversation. And this is Dr. Raghu's first visit back post, the Twilight Zone. So happy to catch up with him as well this afternoon. But you guys know the deal. We will always start our time together with the reading of today's Daily Bread. So today's Daily Bread is entitled How to Wait. And the scripture comes from Psalm 27, verse 7, and reads, "Hear my voice when I call, Lord. Be merciful to me and answer me." Frustrated and disappointed with church, 17-year-old Trevor began a years-long quest for answers, but nothing he explored seemed to satisfy his longings or answer his questions. His journey did draw him closer to his parents. Still, he had problems with Christianity. During one discussion, he exclaimed bitterly, "The Bible is full of empty promises." Another man faced disappointment and hardship that fueled his doubts. But as David fled from enemies who sought to kill him, his response was not to run from God, but to praise him. "Though war break out against me, even then I will be confident," he sang. Yet David's poem still hints at doubt. His cry, "Be merciful to me and answer me," sounds like a man with fears and questions. "Do not hide your face from me," David pleaded. "Do not reject me or forsake me." David didn't let his doubts paralyze him, however. Even in those doubts, he declared, "I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living." Then he addressed his readers, "You, me, and the Trevors of this world. Waiting for the Lord, be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord." We won't find fast, simple answers to our huge questions, but we will find, when we wait for him, a God who can be trusted. Thanks be to God for that word today. As always, here on Straight Talk, we remind you, we encourage you to spend time each and every day focused on his word, meditating on his grace and how awesome he is. With that, I open up my microphones. 943-3700 is the line in studio. You can also WhatsApp me at 324-1565, or you can email me at straighttalkci@gmail.com. We are also streaming live video from the Star 92.7 Facebook page. Shout out to all of you who are tuning in this afternoon, whether it be by radio or via the Facebook page. But I will do a quick catch up. I think Dr. Raghu has stepped away for a quick second. And so, Mr. Shamari, how are you doing? How has the last week treated you?
I'm good. I'm good, Ruthana. It's great to be back again. And you're talking about post Twilight Zone, but I think we're still in the Twilight Zone
Well,
as as it is right now.
I
Um,
mean, less of a twilight zone, okay?
less right,
Yeah,
less of a Twilight Zone.
yeah, I feel like
Right,
the spaceship has landed and we kind of exploring the moon at this stage.
right. But
I
no, it's great.
prefer less of.
It it's great to be back, and it's great to have Dr. Raghu here with us. So Dr. Raghu is the other main component that we have of our cardiology team. So as you know, we always bring the A team, and we always solidify and make sure that we have the best service possible. And Dr. Raghu is an instrumental part of that. So he's a part of the team that would have given us, first in the regions as well, whether it was TAVI, renal denervation, cryoablation, implantation of the CCM device, and the such. So many accolades that go along with the department. Dr. Raghu would be an instrumental part of that as well. But the great thing is, not only do we talk about obviously intervention and what needs to happen if you have an issue, but we're also here to talk about cardiovascular prevention in regards to the various areas of what to look for and how to treat your body in order to make sure that in the future, Dr. Raghu can have a little bit more time to go on the beach because persons aren't necessarily presenting themselves to us, in order to use his great skill set that he has.
Thank you for that. I think, contrary to popular belief, sometimes I do actually think that great doctors wish that they didn't have to see us after we were very sick. I actually think they secretly wish that we would listen to them and take more preventative measures so that their work is a little less complicated. So I think that's the side of it we're gonna talk about today. But welcome back, Dr. Ragu. How are you doing?
And thank you very much, Rutana. And thanks, Shomari, for the kind introduction. I'm good. And how are you guys?
I am doing very well. Good to have you back. I know it's been a while since we've caught up, and it's not your first time in studio with me, so we won't have a official "Who Your Mama"
Who your mama is?
so we won't have an official "Who Your Mama Is" segment, but I do want to remind the listening public a bit about your background and who you are, and I guess some of the things that have led you career wise to eventually coming to Health City. So if you don't mind, Dr. Raghu, if you could just share from a bit of your professional background for those who may be less familiar with you, and may have been a while since they've connected with you through a medium like this. So just remind them a bit about your background, professional experience, if you would.
Yeah, sure. Good evening, guys. I am Dr. Raghu Prasad. I am an adult interventional cardiologist working at Health City, Cayman Islands. Before coming to Cayman, I was working as an interventional cardiologist in Bangalore in our Narayana Health Group. And I moved in Cayman Islands in 2014.
Mhm.
And since then, I have been working here, and I came here on a permanent basis on in March 2017.
Okay, so did you
And
come and go in the beginning?
yep,
Okay,
yeah,
and eventually decided in 2017
yes.
to
I
stay.
used to be a visiting consultant previously, then joined in here on a permanent basis.
Okay,
We were able to capture him and not let him go back. You know.
as Shamari, thank you, Shamari, for admitting. Sometimes there's a bit of a like a okay, stay put, come on, and so you were able to get him. I mean, sometimes it's the stew conk, other times it's the beef.
There we go.
So
So, Dr. Raghu, have you had stew conkers yet?
Yeah, yeah,
See, I tell you, the food will get you. I mean, I know, I'm sure that seeing your patients is also a wonderful aspect of this, but I've definitely found that, like anybody else, the doctors at Health City always have something unique that capture them. Whether I've met photographers more recently, some doctors that are photographers, others that like diving, so it's interesting to see what local interests capture the medical professionals at Health City outside of their work. So I'm glad to know that you've at least experienced some of our food, and hopefully at some point, if you have any non-work interests, I'll get to learn about those as well, because they're always, I think they're always unique things that doctors like to do outside of their work. And like teachers, we think that doctors only like only work in the hospital. You guys don't have a life outside of that, so we're going to talk about that at some point, I'm sure. But as we discussed, today we're going to spend some time talking about the preventative aspects of cardiovascular care. And I think that's important because, correct me if I'm wrong, if I was in your shoes, Dr. Raghu, as a medical professional, I think more times than not, you may find yourself saying, if these patients would just listen to me before they get this sick, we would all be much better off, right? So I think that's
Yep.
the points that we're going to hit on today, because you want us to listen to you. You want us to be, well, and to do the things that keep us well longer. And we know that, of course, the heart, like the brain, we can't live without them, literally. And that is the core of the cardiovascular system. So, as we talk about preventative care and, in our cardiovascular system, if you could, I know a lot of people think cardio and they think the heart, but it's a much bigger system than just that. And so, if you could just share with the listening public, when we talk about cardiovascular health, although we are, I guess, by all accounts, mainly talking about our heart function and such. But when we talk about that system, right, and our cardiovascular health, what are we like from a holistic perspective? What are we talking about?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of morbidity and mortality in many countries, or I would say globally.
Mm-hmm.
And when we talk about cardiovascular health, it's not just the heart and heart attacks, it's more than that. It could be atherosclerotic disease. Atherosclerotic, I mean, where there is clogging of the arteries due to cholesterol deposition or a blood clot.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be heart failure, it could be peripheral vascular disease, or it could be disease affecting kidneys, disease affecting the brain, any vessels in the body that get affected. Or it could be the rhythm disturbances of the heart, like atrial fibrillation. So it does not necessarily mean heart attack. It is actually, as you said, a holistic approach to cardiovascular health involves taking care of all these aspects, and that's where preventative intervention, that would say, I would
Mm-hmm.
say preventive intervention is more important than a procedural intervention
Mm-hmm.
in containing these diseases.
Okay. And what is the difference, right? So, what is preventative intervention?
Yeah, that's another important question.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the statistics, certain diseases are very common in certain age groups, certain ethnicities, and in people who have some comorbidities like diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, obesity, and things like that. So we have to have one risk assessment score, and you should be able to tell which person or patient is going to develop a disease in future. So this preventive aspect involves either primary prevention, wherein you control the disease before actually it happens,
Mm-hmm.
and secondary prevention, wherein you prevent further recurrences of the disease once it has already happened. Like it could be a stroke, it could be a heart attack, or it could be anything related to the heart or other diseases of the body. So in preventive aspects, we always like consider certain risk factors. What is a risk factor? The factor, in simple terms, any factor which enhances the risk of getting heart disease is called a risk factor. So then you categorize the patient according to the risk factors. Like there could be some modifiable risk factors which you can treat, and there could be some unmodifiable risk factors which is not under our control. So the unmodifiable risk factors like age, certain heart diseases are very common after the age of 40 years, or when as you grow older, the incidence of heart diseases increases, or ethnicity in compared to the whites, the African Americans have increased risk of cardiovascular disease, or the South Asians have more chance of developing heart disease. When it comes to gender, women with diabetes after their menopause have high incidence of disease. or it could be hereditary factors, like if there is a family history of somebody having heart attacks in young age, the immediate family members or the relatives, then the person, the next generation, is going to be at a very high risk of developing these cardiovascular diseases. And the modifiable risk factors are like high blood pressure, or diabetes, or cholesterol issues, or obesity. These are considered to be very traditional risk factors which have been identified with increased risk to develop heart problems. So this is how we approach to any patient or a healthy individual who comes to us for risk stratification and advice regarding prevention.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. So I took a bunch of notes as you were talking, because I think that there are so many nuances for persons to figure out and make decisions about when it is time to seek advice on preventative measures. So one of the things that stood out to me are things like kind of like a genetic predisposition, right? So if there is a family history of
Yeah.
cardiovascular disease, and that's evident in your family history. Now, for persons, what would you consider as kind of like a genetic predisposition to cardiovascular disease? How does does that mean, okay, if one family member has had a heart attack or a stroke, then you stand a higher risk? Or what is kind of the general guidance as to, like, whether it may be hereditary or not? Is
Yeah,
it?
yeah, that's important thing to understand.
Mhm.
There is definitely a link between genetics and heart diseases. As they say, genetics loads the gun and environment pulls the trigger.
Mm,
And in families wherein a male member had a cardiovascular event, say like heart attack,
mhm,
less than 55 years of age, or a female member in the family had this cardiovascular problem less than 65 years of age, then yeah, the family members have to be alerted about the possibility of them developing these cardiovascular problems. So these are the high risk individuals who need to be screened. We have to do an estimation of their risk score of developing these problems, and then implement the preventive measures earlier in life.
okay. And so if one of the listening public says, you know what, there is an immediate family member who had, a incident, a stroke, a heart attack, before 60, before 45. What is your guidance to that person? At what age, if there is a family history of heart disease or potential cardiovascular disease, or of one person who suffered a heart attack or a stroke, um, what would be your guidance to me or to them as to when do we come in for screening, and to have our risk factors looked at? At what age do we do that?
Yeah. So there is one important thing here to understand. If somebody has got symptoms of heart problem or stroke, there is no need to wait for certain age for them to attain certain age. Like usually we tend to screen people, asymptomatic persons, over the age of 40 years. But now I would say, because of increased environmental stresses, and particularly in the context of the COVID crisis, I think 35 years and above should be the ideal age to start
Mhm.
screening, looking for the risk factors, and possibly treating them on time.
Oh,
And
there.
second thing is in persons who don't have any symptoms, I
Mhm.
think the screening process should consider, one is, as I said, the genetic history, the family history of premature atherosclerotic heart diseases,
Mhm.
or in persons who have risk factors, like somebody who is a diabetic at the age of 30, 35. See, these are, or somebody who has a known cholesterol problem, or who has high blood pressure issue, or who is overweight or obese. So these are the guys who should go for a thorough checkup, and then start treatment. Of course, this lifestyle measures, the healthy living, it's not restricted only to certain age group. It should start right from the, it's for the entire lifetime. The lifestyle measures are not over the age of 40, over the age of 50. So it should start right from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And then, if a person has been screened for primary prevention, that means he never had any heart issues, he or she never had any heart issues. And once you screen and you are sure that the patients or the person's the investigations, the risk assessment, the profile, the overall profile in the family and the patient's risks is, I mean, okay, then you ask them to do an annual check. So if somebody has a risk factor, you identify them promptly and then advise on the preventive measures, which I'm going to talk to in detail after some time, maybe during the course of this discussion.
Okay. And so, I will, as you were talking, I was being very attentive. And when you said over 35, I said, oh gosh, right? Because I am 35 on the cusp of, turning 36 this year. And definitely there is evidence of, well, and let me ask it this way. So there is maybe one immediate family member that I know had a heart attack prior to being male, prior to being 50. Otherwise, there is a great evidence of comorbid conditions, right? Diabetic, high blood pressure, you name it, it's there. Now, high cholesterol, despite not, and no mom, dad, or siblings have had any heart attacks or stroke at what would be considered a early age, but there's a lot of comorbidity in the immediate family. Is that
Yeah,
considered, would I fall in the bracket of someone who should consider early screening as a woman, right? Because I'm 35 now, or is it more
yeah,
so if there has been an actual incident? I don't as to my knowledge, I don't exhibit any symptoms of any kind of heart disease or anything like that, but there are definitely um just really significant evidence in the family of comorbid conditions, and in the immediate family. Is that a reason to consider screening early?
yeah. Even in an, yeah, if there is a strong family history of heart disease,
Mhm.
I would recommend for females who are more than 45 years of age to get screened for heart problems. Till the estrogen levels in the body work, till menopause, it's
Okay.
generally considered to be a protective factor. Unless the a person indulges in unhealthy lifestyle like smoking or
Mm.
excessive alcohol consumption, or not working out, not maintaining the proper body weight. There are risk factors which can happen. I mean, which can lead to heart attacks even in earlier ages, before 45 years.
Mm.
Yeah, I have seen many young females in the age of 30 to 40 who have come to us with major heart problems in the form of heart attacks. And the only risk factor that we could, figure out was either they were indulging in excessive smoking, or
Mhm.
they were obese, or they had some other issues, like stress. So it's not necessary that one should have the known conventional factors like diabetes, hypertension, or other comorbidities. The lifestyle plays an important role here.
Okay. And how big of a role does obesity play in cardiovascular disease?
That's a very good question. Obesity is associated with so many other health issues. Like obesity can lead to sleep apnea, which in turn can lead to heart problem. Obesity can increase the risk for one to develop diabetes or hypertension or cholesterol issues, and that's how obesity leads to increased risk, overall risk for cardiovascular health.
Mm.
Like one is it is determined by genetics again, because it can run in families, and second thing is poor lifestyle. So one should know there are height, weight parameters, the anthropometric targets, and then they need to follow these measures to maintain themselves at appropriate the desirable weight levels, or they should work on maintaining weight loss strategies.
Okay. And I, I think this something that always comes up in my mind anytime discussions like this come up. As a culture, we don't like to. We have very, I guess, kind and friendly words for things that aren't actually very good for us, right? And culturally, we're also much more accepting of, in my opinion, of weight and things like your sugar, as opposed to taking them as seriously as we may need to. And I speak from experience, and I share this with anybody any day. Shamari knows that I speak about this very, very freely, and because I am eternally grateful for for at that time specifically for an endocrinologist who said do something about it, right? um, and I used to be much heavier and in university, and it was easy as a woman from the Caribbean where it's normal, it's acceptable, it's attractive. I was 24 and 267 pounds, and and I was all levels of confident, so it was not a no self-esteem issues, because as a woman from the Caribbean, um I think most people can agree that there tends to be almost an appreciation of our shapeliness and
Most
voluptuousness,
definitely.
right? And so it can make it difficult to even make it a priority to lose weight. That's the reality, because you are confident because of your size, and you are you don't have self-esteem issues that drive a lot of other cultures that may drive them to lose weight, right? And so I think it can be a very difficult thing for us to embrace, because it we I don't think we have the real understanding that despite the fact that we may feel very confident, we might still be killing ourselves, right? And
Yeah,
for me, I feel like it can be a very, very difficult battle for us to fight in regions like this, because we don't always say it for what it is. And for me, it was, I had a doctor look me in the face at 24 and said, you either need to do something or you may be killing yourself early, right? And she did not
yeah,
mince her words about what that meant. And yes, I had an underactive thyroid at the time, and all of those things. And so she at the time recommended what ended up being a sleeve gastrectomy that helped me lose the weight. But had she not looked me square, and not because I did not have diabetes at the time, I had no high blood pressure, no cholesterol, but there was such a strong family history of it. And she was aware of it, and you couple that with a underactive thyroid. Had she not looked me square in the face and said, this is not sustainable, if you want to attempt to live a long and healthy life with a family history that looks like this, then you need to do something about it, right? And so having
yeah,
settled here now for permanently for the last 3 years, right, and having visited here over the last 6 years, I believe, um, is this something that you are running into as you try to advise and be of counsel and help in a population like this? Do you think that there is, I guess, a serious enough focus and understanding of the fact that things like weight and diabetes and high cholesterol truly can kill us before they become major issues? Because I think that we don't really take it serious until like it brings us to the emergency room in many cases, because we don't have, in my opinion, serious enough discussions about the fact that what we're doing is kind of calling down death's door, right? And that's how I feel
yeah,
about
yeah,
it, right?
yeah, yeah.
Hmm. Is
So
that Go ahead, sorry.
I would like to highlight one thing here. The
Hmm.
factors which lead to obesity are also mostly the same factors which lead to other comorbid conditions like high blood pressure or diabetes or cholesterol issues.
Mhm.
So, and once obesity is associated with other comorbid conditions, the risk of developing cardiovascular problems multiplies. So, one should work on these aspects. So, when you come to the preventive aspects, the specific points what we need to discuss, then I'm going to tell you about the guidelines how to go about these things. So,
Okay.
let's discuss it when you come to that part of our discussion.
Yes, and
Yeah.
we're going out to our first break of our time together. And as soon as we return into this conversation and come back from the break, we're going to go right into that discussion about, now what can we do? What are your guidelines about what we need to do to try to take more preventative measures to cardiovascular health? It is 5:33 on the Star 92.7 clock, and I will be right back after this break with my partners from Health City Cayman Islands for Medical Monday. We are talking about preventative health care, in particular focused on our cardiovascular health. Do not touch that dial. We will be right back after this break for some more Straight Talk on Star 92.7.
Join the conversation. The phone lines are now open. 943-3700. You can also find us on Facebook or email us at straighttalkci@gmail.
Every Wednesday and Thursday, all Rubis stations are rolling back the price on all fuel purchases by 20 cents. Every customer will save 20 cents on every gallon of fuel purchased on Wednesday and Thursday. Every customer. Only at Rubis. Roll back.
Only at participating Rubis service stations.
Roll back.
Flow is excited to bring you everything you'll ever need in a mobile plan. Be the superhero in your family and get the new mobile family plan. The family plan gives you up to 4 lines for $60 per line per month with unlimited talk and data. You heard right. Unlimited talk and data. Don't miss out on getting your family plan with Flow today. Visit discoverflow.ky/family for details. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Flow Cayman Islands. Terms and conditions apply. Flow, you deserve the best.
There are few things in Cayman that are as iconic as the 2 for $6 deal at Burger King, with the possible exception of our wonderful marine life. Well, possible exception no more. The Big Fish Sandwich has just joined the other stars of 2 for $6. You heard right. Choose from the iconic Whopper, Crispy Chicken Sandwich, Spicy Crispy Chicken Sandwich, and now the Big Fish. And get 2 sandwiches for just $6. Hurry, for a limited time only. Available at Burger King 7 Mile Beach, Waterfront, Walkers Road, and Red Bay.
Join the University College of the Cayman Islands admission team for their webinar, a step-by-step guide on how to apply to UCCI this fall 2020 semester. It's happening Friday, June 26th at 12 noon. Get the answers you need to make your admission process easy. Visit ucci.edu.ky to register. That's ucci.edu.ky.
Welcome back to Straight Talk with Ruth Anna on Star 927.
Back, folks, and you are tuned into Straight Talk, brought to you exclusively by Star 92.7 Premium Radio. I am your host, Ruth Anna Young, joined in studio this afternoon by some of the professionals from Health City Cayman Islands. Today is Monday, which means it is Medical Monday, brought to you by our partners at Health City. We are talking about the preventative health care, specifically preventative cardiovascular health care, joined this afternoon by Dr. Raghu, part of that team, and Mr. Shomari Scott, certainly no stranger to the Straight Talk studio. And 943-3700 is the line in studio. You can also WhatsApp me at 324-1565. You can email me at straighttalkci@gmail.com. Or you can also leave your comments, questions, or concerns on the live stream on Facebook via the Star 92.7 Facebook page. And so I have someone who just wrote in and says, very sobering show tonight, going to go ahead and make my doctor's appointment. And so that is, and I know the person personally, and certainly family history of cardiovascular issues in the family. So I am happy to know that they are tuned in this afternoon and going to go ahead and take the necessary measures for herself to ensure that she is healthy. And so Shomari, if you could, Shomari?
Yes, I'm here.
For those who may, like the listener who may not have any signs of being ill, but want to do an early screening, and take the preventative steps and assess their risk factors. What steps do they have to take? Who do they call? What do those steps normally look like?
Very easy.
Mhm.
And you know the number and you know the email, Ruthana.
Mhm.
So what email would they email if they want
Oh my
any
gosh,
information?
I had the number. I had the number prepared for
Oh, you had the number, but you don't have the email. You
six
should
four
have
zero
this. It
four
should be like
zero.
rote. It should be a part of your being by now.
See, this is the problem. Since we've come back from
Yes.
COVID, like, well,
I've been given the number without
yes,
testing you. Exactly.
yes, and so I'm not forgetting the number again, right?
All
Six
right.
zero four zero four zero, and but we're gonna have to do a email refresh.
Info at
Mhm.
healthcity.ky.
There we go. And so I'm such a phone person. So info at healthcity.ky or 6404040. And
Yes.
do you
And we
guys
have,
go ahead?
sorry, go ahead.
Do you guys for this type of assessment, I know you guys have the executive health checks and those type the series of health checks you can choose from.
Mhm.
Would a screening for specifically for a cardio risk assessment be different than one of your
We
executive health?
have, yes. So we also have the executive health check is just good across the board.
Mhm.
Just because any ailment that you may have, more than likely it will pick it up, even if it's outside of cardiac. So it's always good to be able to one have your executive health checkup, just to see if make sure everything is as good as possible. But if there is an issue, there are other tests that obviously we would actually advise for you to take. But the great thing is, depending on your profile,
Mhm.
we can also, if you were to email in or call in and say, this is my age, I have a family history, what would you suggest? Then our resources would be able to suggest which portion of the checkup would be best for you. But just in general, the executive health checkup usually would catch a variety of things that will be there.
Okay, and because I know that you guys have like the different levels, and one of
We do.
them includes like a more of a comprehensive cardio check. So
Correct.
as we were
But
talking,
if you don't have a family history and you're not within the risk factor areas, like some people have requested it,
Mhm.
that our physicians will look and say, do you have family history? No. And they will look at the age and they will look at just your basic indicators and say, you know what, you really don't need it. Just come in, do the regular executive health check. And if we do catch anything, then obviously we will. But at this point in time, we would just be taking your money for you to do something that wouldn't necessarily be needed, which, we don't do. Um, so we'll definitely evaluate
Okay,
from
got
there.
it. So there are a few different options, and I think Dr. Ragu, I think we just got Dr. Ragu back.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome back, sir. So I want to dive right into those questions around, you know, what are the steps that you would guide us to take, in terms of lifestyle? In particular, I'm interested to hear, what are the steps we need to take as preventative steps in our own life? And I think you referred to them as primary intervention, if I'm
Yep.
correct, like the things we do before we get sick, right? To try not to be sick. Um,
Absolutely.
right? So, what are some of the steps that we need to keep in mind and lifestyle habits and changes that we need to make to try to maintain our cardiovascular health for as long as possible?
Yeah. So the guideline derived therapy for the preventive aspects of cardiovascular health include mainly the diet, the physical activity, and cessation of smoking, alcohol consumption in moderation, not going through that stress, how to de-stress yourself. So these are some of the things that are important. So in preventing the risk factors, this is known as prevention of risk factors is known as primordial prevention. And when it comes to diet, the general advice would be to eat a lot of fresh vegetables and fruits, eat a lot of legumes and nuts and whole grains, avoid eating the packaged food or the processed food, avoid refined carbohydrates or maybe sugars and sweet drinks. When it comes to physical activity, one is advised to do at least 150 minutes of moderate level of physical activity per week, or 75 minutes of intense physical activity, uh, 75 minutes of intense physical activity per week. Whoever is able to do whatever physical activity in the given time is good enough. And these are the specific guidelines by the American Heart Association with respect to the level of intensity and the timing. Coming to the other risk factors, like one should do practice yoga for mental relaxation, because particularly in these tough times, people have not been able to do their activities as they wanted to because of the restrictions that were imposed because of this COVID lockdown, or it may be lack of physical activity which would have made some people to gain weight in these last 3 or 4 months. So one should always try to do as much physical activity as possible within the given situation and circumstances. Uh, and then when coming to the particular preventive aspects for diseases, like one should do an annual health checkup as part of screening protocol. And if patients have been recognized with some diseases like diabetes, hypertension, or any other risk factor, should undergo frequent thorough checkups. It's not that they have to go only once in a year. Uh, then particular recommendations for cholesterol level control, or diabetes management, or blood pressure control. These aspects would be, dealt with in detail as per the clinician-patient discussion, and then their involvement is very much required to devise a treatment plan to initiate the medical therapy. So these are some of the aspects that I wanted to highlight. And smoking and drinking alcohol is, of course, a very unhealthy lifestyle habit, and this thing needs to be re-emphasized. Even second-hand smoke, is no good. So we always keep stressing on these preventive factors. But still, we see that patients who have had disease or who have had a heart attack and intervention don't actually listen to these advices, and then they continue doing it, and then they have more risk of having a recurrence.
And it's in reality, many of us are well aware of the things that are recommended for us in a lot of instances, but don't necessarily make the lifestyle changes early enough if we were not raised in them.
Yeah.
And one of the things I thought of as you spoke, you said it was 50, you said 75 minutes of what's recommended is 75 minutes of intense exercise per week. I think it was
Yep.
what you said. Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
And so just to, as a matter of clarity, if we don't like, some people can find 15 minutes in a day, 20 minutes in a day. If we split 75 minutes up over the course of a week, does that still meet the recommended requirements, or does it have to be 75 minutes in a single day?
No, no, no. It's not like that. It's a cumulative amount of exercise one does in that particular week.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So we can spread it out if we need to, and just try to fit it in over, because that makes it, we think about all of the things that, and I think that's what overwhelms a lot of people, is how am I going to fit this in this week, and where am I going to find 75 minutes? If we can do 15-20 minutes on a daily basis, or 30 minutes 2 days a week, and another 15-minute exercise, because I remember the first time it was a dietitian who said to me, just do 15 or 20 minutes a day. And I was like, what's that going to do? That was kind of like that feeling of, well, will that really work? And, this was another reminder that it is, as long as you get it in, it does not have to be an hour, 2 hours every single day. 15 minutes, 20 minutes, depending on how you split up your week, as long as it adds up over the course of a week to the
Yeah.
guidance. And as you were talking, one of the other things I was quite reminded of, the advice that you are giving to us. And, I think this is something about science that we often forget. This is based on years often of study, and often tens of thousands of people studied and tracked to find out what the averages are, because I think it's an easy, what I, what we call a cop out, when people say, oh well, look at that person, they exercised every day and they still had a heart attack early. There are exceptions to the rules, right? Like, I
Yeah,
think there are exceptions to the rules, but on average, the guidance you are giving is, and science and medicine is generally based on, after studying tens of thousands of people, years worth of study, you know, human beings from all sorts of backgrounds, this is what we consider a suitable average for the average person as guidance, right?
yeah.
Um, and because that's generally how
These are
medicine.
all, yeah, these are all based on the randomized control trials and the registries and the observational studies over a period of time from different countries and from different ethnicities.
And so I think that's what makes it very. We have to be reminded that this is usually decades worth of work, to give us this advice and to understand that, you've pointed out some of the exceptions to the rules with family history, and the like. But even for those of us who feel perfectly healthy, and I know that I still have a far way to go to feel perfectly healthy, but I'm getting there. But even for those who say, well, I exercise, or I'm eating right, whatever the case may be, or maybe they don't do all those things, they feel, oh, I'm young, it doesn't matter. This is what the science shows, right? This is what the science shows, and this is the guidance that's being given. And I want to
Yeah,
make sure that while we wind down our time together now, Health City has long been, over the years, established itself as a leader in the region and globally, and especially in part, of course, here in the realm of cardiovascular healthcare and the expertise that's offered, within that team, at Health City. There's a full range of services in the cardiovascular department and in that specialty. I want to give while we're very much talking about the preventative medicine aspect of it, to remind everyone of the essentially breadth of services that's offered at Health City, because I think it is a great service that you do to the community by coming on to remind us how to not come visit you, and because that's the objective, right? Get us to take care of ourselves and hopefully not get sick too soon, right? But you know the reality is people get sick, heart attacks, stroke, high blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol, the whole gamut. Will happen at some point, as whether we like it or not, to different people in our communities. And so just if you could just give I guess maybe between you and Shamari, a reminder of the extent of the services that are offered through the cardiovascular team, both on the preventative side, but of course there is also if we do get ill, what are the things that Health City can treat and take care of their patients. So if you could, I guess in the next 4 or 5 minutes, just kind of go through that list of services offered through the cardiovascular department at Health City.
yeah. At Health City, we have both the non-invasive and invasive cardiovascular care facilities. So we give a lot of importance to the preventive aspects. We have a dietitian, a physiotherapist as part of the cardiac rehabilitation team who takes care of the post-event management. They also can be helpful in telling the persons who come here for screening about the diet and physiotherapy required to prevent the cardiovascular disease. Then we have an interventional cardiology setup where we do coronary and peripheral vascular interventions and cardiac arrhythmia services. We do a lot of device therapies. We do appendage closures. We do TAVIs, all the latest in the market, whatever procedures are available. So it's a very advanced, sophisticated, tertiary care unit. Shamari, would you like to add more to it?
Yeah, no, I mean, so Ruth
Yeah.
Anna, anything that, and then obviously, Dr. Raghu would be speaking some acronyms that people may not be aware of, but anything cardiac related, we can do at Health City, and definitely come in to get your checkups, because outside of cardiac, anything neuro, anything from an orthopedic perspective, joints, bones, anything brain, anything from a general surgery perspective, as you would have known. I think we had Dr. Deepak on here recently as well, who is the only liver specialist of his type on island that can actually perform surgeries on the liver as well as on the pancreas. So the whole range of issues that you could potentially have, for the most part, we're able to deal with it at Health City. And even prior to having some of our services, there were even persons who came to us that otherwise had been going undiagnosed, that we would have caught what it was, and actually were able at that point in time to refer them overseas in order for them to be dealt with. But since that time, we have those specialties in house as well. So regardless of what it is, we will give best efforts to obviously figure out if there's an issue, what it is, and then obviously help you to be treated, either within, which we mostly can do, or outside as well.
Okay. And I have to slide this in there before we go. So I remember, Shamari, you've mentioned before in one of some of our earlier conversations, you had talked, I think you've mentioned on a number of occasions how people looking to retire in Cayman, one of their considerations, people, especially people of independent means and such, are
Definitely.
they give consideration to healthcare facilities and the draw for where they purchase real estate and the like. So I actually had one of those conversations today, and so I am very grateful to Health City. So for those who don't know, like my day job is real estate, right? That's my actual profession. And so today, someone that was recommended to me, they've literally never set foot in Cayman before, right? They've never
Hmm.
visited here, none of it. And so, but someone recommended, but they're looking at where to retire and that whole conversation. And so in the first 5 minutes of conversation, they said, I've never been there, but I heard you have this place called Health City, right? And that is part of their consideration for
Right.
looking at Kim. And I was astonished when they said they've never even been here before. But when they look at the things that they're looking for in a place of retirement, that is top of their list in
And
terms.
top of mind, they mentioned Health City without you bringing it up.
No, in the first 5 minutes of conversation,
Right.
that was part of our discussion. They went through, okay, this is what I'm looking, and it was after I said to them, have you been here before? Are
Hmm.
you familiar with the location? And we were talking about a specific area, and they said, no, but I heard you have this place called Health City, right? And so then we got into talking about that, and I said, see, Shamari did tell me this was important to people, and so that was a very interesting conversation today. So I just wanted to bring that real life
That
example,
is awesome.
yeah, into our conversation
Pat,
because I
pat on back. So
yeah,
marketing brand that
yeah,
they've never been to the Cayman Islands, but Hell City. There's a place there called Hell City.
yeah,
Yep.
because they have lived. They're originally from the Caribbean, but have
Hmm.
lived in Canada for the last 15 years.
Right.
And so
Right.
that is where they heard about Health City and the work that you
Awesome.
guys are doing. So I thought I'd share that today. But we have about 3 minutes left to go, so I want to give you both time for final thoughts this afternoon. Dr. Raghu, if you could just give final thoughts and reminders, and then Shamar, if you could do the same before we close out the show, please.
Oh, thank you. I always insist that prevention is the best form of intervention. Though I'm an interventional cardiologist, I always emphasize on this point. And the general measures, what we alluded to in our course of the discussion, was about preventing the risk factors itself, thereby preventing the disease. And as like I mentioned about the dietary approaches to prevent hypertension, diabetes, cholesterol issues, then regular screening health checks, particularly in those who have high risk of developing the cardiovascular problems, and then implementing these measures, and then starting therapies if they have been diagnosed with any disease. These all go in a long way in the prevention of cardiovascular diseases and its associated complications and catastrophes.
All right, thank you so much for sharing that. Final thoughts and
Yeah.
reminders from you, Dr. Shamari.
Yeah, doctor, huh? As I
Yeah.
heard you, you slipped. um, no, but just once again, that Health City is here for you. We have a great team, and especially from a cardiovascular perspective, Dr. Raghu forms a main component of the cardiology team, and we're here. So if you want an executive checkup or just a checkup in general, definitely give us a call 640-4040 or email us at info@healthcity.ky. And as we mentioned, there have been many people who have come to us that we've been able to catch things to help them, with their standard of living, just due to the fact that we were able to help prior to an event happening, as well as in many cases as well. Obviously, if it's emergent, they reach to us, and a Dr. Raghu or a Dr. Ravi would be there to help them in saving lives as well. So we just look forward to continuing to play a part of the fabric of the Cayman Islands. And you gave a great story where, unabated, they mentioned Health City, somebody who's looking to actually purchase property. And that's just one of the benefits that we're bringing to the Cayman Islands, and will continue to do so in the years to come.
Awesome. Thank you both for your time spent with me this afternoon. And Dr. Raghu, thank you for sharing all of that fantastic advice and advice we need to live by. As you mentioned earlier, it's a lifetime of living well and taking the necessary steps and treating our bodies accordingly, and getting to you early when necessary. But that brings us to the end of Medical Monday. We're about to turn the dial to 6 p.m. Thank you both. As always, I will see you, God's Fierce Life, next Monday for Medical Monday. And for the listening audience, thank you for tuning in. For those of you who tuned in via Facebook, thank you so much, and on the radio. And thank you to the listener who sent comments in as well. I trust that they will make it up to Health City for their appointment, as they were reminded about the necessary steps they need to take because of hereditary risk factors of cardiovascular disease. But that brings us to the end of today's show. I'll be back again, same time, same place tomorrow. Tomorrow, I will be joined by ICCI and Toastmasters. I have two separate segments, and I'll be going at my usual time from 5 to 6 p.m. I love y'all. Please keep it locked all evening long to Star 92.7.
Let's get to the point. More straight talk to come on Star 927.